Spirit. Good evening, folks. My name's Andrew Belson. I'm the chief curator here at Western Spirit, and it is my honor and privilege to welcome you to what should be a very entertaining evening where you may come away with this Hollywood gossip, among other things, I hope. Uh, as some of you will have seen, we have a 3-month exhibition called The Resurrection of Billy the Kid on display right now here at Western Spirit. We're going to leave it open, so you folks who didn't get here in time are welcome to have a gander at it on your way out. As part of our exhibitions here at Western Spirit, we love to bring in big name speakers. And so we've got a couple lined up who know something or two about Billy the Kid. The historian Paul Andrew Hutton, who has just written a great new book, really comprehensive history of the American West called The Undiscovered Country, will be here later in November. So I hope you'll all be here for that. So I'm going to get 2 talks. One about Billy the Kid, one about the Undiscovered Country. But we're kicking this off tonight, and I could not ask for 2 or knowledgeable individuals about Billy the Kid, as well as other things to do with the West and popular culture in general. So let me first introduce to you our interlocutor, Bob Boze Bell. Bob, as many of you will know, is the executive editor of True West Magazine, position he's held since 1999, when he purchased, maybe rescued, the publication and moved to Cave Creek, Arizona. He's a prolific author, written books on legendary figures like Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday, Wild Bill Hickok, and of course, Billy the Kid. Also, accomplished artist and illustrator. He's worked gracing pages of publications like Arizona Highways, Playboy, National Lampoon, as well as gallery walls of fine museums, just like this one. And he's, of course, been honored with many awards. He won a Gold Laureate from the Will Rogers Memorial, and just last week, an Arizona History Makers Award from the Arizona Historical League. Please join me in welcoming Bob Boze Bell. And in conversation with Bob this evening is John Fusco. John is an award-winning screenwriter, producer, novelist, and musician whose work has helped to redefine what the Western means in the modern era. After breaking out with a film called Crossroads, he hit it big with Young Guns and his sequel, Young Guns 2, which introduced the legend of Billy the Kid to a new generation. Subsequent screenplays include the American Indian-themed thriller Thunderheart, the horse racing adventure Hidalgo, the Academy Award-nominated animated now classic Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron, and more recently, The Highway, starring Kevin Costner and Woody Harrelson, as the Texas Rangers who tracked down Bonnie and Clyde. But beyond the Western, Fusco has also explored martial arts and epic adventures in films like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Brain, and Sword of Destiny, and the Netflix series Marco Polo, which he created and executive produced. He's also an accomplished novelist and songwriter, multiple books and albums just read. So what can we say about John? He is a storyteller drawn to outsiders, underdogs, and legends that won't die. His work continues to shape how audience experience the myths and histories of the American West and beyond. Please join me in welcoming John Fusco.
Well, it's a thrill for me, and if the stories he's told me already are just what he tells tonight, we're in for a great treat because this guy, I like to kind of flummox the word to start, but why don't we start with tell me about Alligator Road?
Alligator Road. Wow. Well, well, first of all, thank you for coming. Thanks for coming out. And thank you, Andrew. It's a thrill for me. It really is. And I love this museum. It's like my favorite museum in the world. I'd love to spend the night here, sleep over, and see if we can have a night at the museum. But such a big fan of Bob and his art and this wonderful exhibit, The Resurrection of Billy the Kid. Just to be a part of it is really meaningful to me. Alligator Road, well, it makes me think about in True West magazine at one point, there was an article that you did, and it said, how does a guy from Connecticut end up writing these Westerns? And I always say,
Did I say that's snotty?
no, it wasn't snotty at all. All right, it was just sort of like, and then I always say, well, Zane Grey was a dentist from Ohio. But when people think of Connecticut, they tend to think of Greenwich and Paul Newman and, the Gold Coast. I grew up on the other side of the tracks, um, down a dirt road, a few miles of dirt roads. The kids used to, when I had to hike out, hit the bus. The kids would always say, "You live on Alligator Road," because it was like bumpy and there were swamps, and it was rural. It was countryside, and my dad owned an auto salvage yard contiguous to a pig farm, and it was an unusual upbringing, and that salvage yard was magical to me in many ways because my job was to crack open the trunks of these cars, and I would find these wonders. And it was kind of like archaeology. These cars, they're cars from the 40s, 50s, and what I always looked forward to the most were books. And that's where I first found the old book called Trigonometry,
Yep.
History of Gunfighters. And my young brother and I, we would sit down in the basement with these books that came out of the trucks. And that's when we became obsessed with the Old West.
Wow, that's fantastic. I have a similar story in that my dad had a gas station in Kingman, and so tourists would come on for going to California, and they were out of money, and so they would give him a Bowie knife. Okay, we'd come home and give me a Bowie knife, and one time he gave me a 8mm camera, and I think you had the same story. Yeah, then you started making movies. So is that kind of interesting that out of a wrecking yard you would get that?
Yes, if you had to find the magic where you could find it, and along with demolition derbies that I would sneak in and do with my friends, I did find a Super 8 camera in a trunk, and I always, looking back now, it was a gift from the gods.
And what movie did you make? What was the title?
Oh, you mean
Did you have title?
yeah. So I would hold auditions in the neighborhood, and I put
Gas up out, of course.
There's still a young, there was a young girl I still won't talk to because she ruined the shot. We were doing I was doing a remake of Frankenstein, and she was supposed to be a damsel in distress and like run into the camera close up screaming, and she ran up and did like a post for a beauty shot. Right, ruined the shot, but so I would do my own twists on the classic Universal horror movies. I did The Wolfman, including stop action photography, where I transformed into the Wolfman.
Does this still exist?
Yeah, does it? You don't have to.
You say you say that kind of like here.
Well, it's there's some good stuff in there. That I used dyed cotton balls and would just do stop action, adding them. So it wasn't Lon Chaney Jr., but it was, it definitely illustrated a passion for what I wanted to do, Andrew.
Yeah. Steven Spielberg, of course, spelled fear. And in The Fablemans, which is kind of an autobiographical version of his life, I thought it was interesting that he filmed at Cabago Park Westerns, and then for the gunshots, he would poke a hole in film so that then the guy's pointing a gun, and then it was it would look like a gunfire. And I thought, well, that was a little bit beyond my pay grade. So we were all dabbling in this.
Yes.
Now, how does a guy who didn't graduate from high school end up in NYU Film School? How did that happen?
It was going back to those early films. I really fell in love with the process and felt that that was my calling. It's what I wanted to do. I wanted to write and make movies. And I had one teacher, a sixth grade teacher, who was really encouraging. And she'd have me bring in my movies and I'd screen them for the class and talk about it. And she would sit down with me and say, you could do something with this. I said, I really want to. And my father, who, he just felt like he was a hardworking man who grew up during the Depression. Who was like, people like us who don't go off to Hollywood. We got the junkyard, you could take it over or go to school for business and that type of stuff. And then so they waited for that phase to pass, and it never did. And as I got older and into my teens, um, I just kept saying, "This is what I want to do. I've got to find an outlet for it." My mother, she would on her shopping day every Tuesday come home and sneak me 50 feet of film, Super 8 film, so I could keep making my movies. And she even wrote a letter to TV Guide saying, "What do I do with this kid?"
And what did TV guy say?
Nothing.
Do nothing.
I've been with her, son. I was waiting through the mailbox.
Oh,
So no one knew what to do with this guy, and eventually, I kind of rebelled by channeling my writing into song lyrics. When I started hanging around with different garage bands, and they all had their 3-chord original wonders. I said, "I've got some words for that," and then they said, "Well, nobody sings." I said, "Well, let me give it a shot," and they liked the quality of my voice. And the next thing I knew, I was singing with these bands, original songs that I wrote. And my father didn't like that very much. He had bought a Hammond organ for me because I agreed that I would play Italian wedding songs. And he would catch me playing gospel and blues and all the brothers. And it led to a big fight, and I ended up running away from home.
how old are you?
16.
60. Yeah.
And
Well, sensitive age, yeah.
I hitchhiked down south.
Really?
Yeah. I had this feeling because at that point I was kind of embittered about letting go of this Hollywood dream. I was like, "But I'm going to make it in music, and I want to know what's under the music of the Rolling Stones and the Allman Brothers. What's with this Elmore James, Muddy Waters?" So I headed down to the Mississippi Delta with this quixotic idea of finding obscure blues legends. And
And did you have money?
no, I had no. I worked with an itinerant group of I call the last vestiges of American hobos. They would jump trains and they would go from sawmill to sawmill, and I fell in with a group who went from car wash to car wash. And so I would work in car washes with these.
My hair's blowing back if you can. See it? I did not have this kind of levels. This is amazing. Go.
That was it. So I spent time in the Mississippi Delta, and I did get to meet some old blues guys. Usually through the hobo travels, like they still back in those days had jungles, hobo jungles, and I would meet an old blues band, and they would always tell me, "You got to go to the church. You got to go to the church. That's where you got to." So I would go to these old Black Baptist churches and listen to gravy sermons and all that stuff, and then I eventually came back home.
How long was it? How long were you out?
That was about 6 or 7 months.
Wow.
But it would go on. I'd come back, and things would go sideways, and I'd run away again.
Wow.
And then I'd head to Florida. I went down to Daytona Beach looking for Greg Allman, and I found him. So, but eventually I came back up, and I had my satchel of original songs. I felt like I studied, I earned my chops, and I put together an original band, and we were played on the New Haven rock and roll circuit, kind of country rock, and we out here.
Year is it?
This is late 70s.
Late 70s now.
And so
Name of the band?
the Travis McComb Band, and we had interest from the manager of the Grateful Dead, and so he paid for us to do a demo, and this was all going pretty well. We were opening up for some pretty big bands like James Cotton, James Montgomery, and we opened up for this southern rock band called the Dixie Road Ducks, and it traveled in a renovated '57 school bus. I thought that was the coolest thing, and after we opened up for them, they invited me onto the bus. So he said, "Let me get the boys," and they said, "No, just you." And so I went onto the bus, and they said, "We love what you do. We love your originals. We love for that." you're singing, and we want you to go on the road with us, and we'll pay you. And so I did. And
They didn't want the band. They just wanted you.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so it was
What did they pay?
it was $1,000 a week.
Oh my goodness. Yes, that's because my daughter would say that's ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah.
But if we were paying in Kingman for $25 in the door, you know, I mean that's the for $1,000 would be that. I mean that's big time stuff.
Yeah, they had a big following.
Wow.
And you know they played big shows of like Molly Hatchet, Skinner, and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And they were all in their 30s and 40s, and I was 17, 18 at that point.
Hey.
And so that was my high school education.
Yeah.
But it was during that experience that cured me of aspirations of living on the road.
If you want to hear that story, well, Peter Bones, that's a
So they had bunks in this bus, and the bus would be full of smoke, and when the bus was always picking up people from the different clubs who would wake up in the morning and say, "How did I get on the bus?" But it seemed like a good idea at the time. But it was a crazy world, and I started to get disillusioned with the band. $1,000 a week was there, up front a lot, and then it became, you know what, we've got to put some money away for our album. We're going to record your songs. I started to feel like I got pulled into this. At one point, from a payphone, I called home just to check in and learned that my grandfather died. And so the bus was going to go back up north. We played up and down from Florida, up and down. And when I learned my grandfather died, I went and I sat in the back of the bus, and we were driving to South Carolina. It was like one of those just long, endless drives. And I was looking at these guys sleeping, and I was looking at the driver who was coked out. And he was wearing like a Red Baron flight leather thing, and she tried me along. And I'm sitting in the back, and I just started doing some real soul searching. And it came out of this place of sorrow, or having lost my grandfather who I was close to. And I started asking myself, how did I get here? And is this what I was meant to do? And I always describe it as it was kind of a meditation prayer, but I really was able to connect with a feeling. And that feeling told me, you're not on the beam. And what is the beam? It was, when did you feel like your authentic, to use the term authentic self, but yeah, when did I feel that I was in the zone and doing what I was meant to do? And it was making those films, writing, and at this point I felt like, why did I ever let anyone talk me out of this? There's a way. There's a way. And when this bus gets back up north, I'm leading this band. I'm going to night school. I'm going to get my GED, and I'm going to get into school, and I'm going to study film, and I'm going to make it in that world. Even if I have to die trying, I'm going to do it. I just made up my mind, and that's what I did.
So now you're at NYU, which was probably not easy to get into. How'd you get over that hurt?
Writing samples. Also, I've been writing on the road the whole time.
All right.
And
So had your hand in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I sent in writing samples, and I still remember it was Jesse Kornbluth who read my samples. There's a well-known writer, and he got me. He met with her. He said, "This guy should be in the program." Wow. And so I got into the film school, and it was daunting because I really had, I didn't have a real high school experience.
Sure.
And
Jonas had a better one in real life. Yes, you saw where you didn't want to go, and you also saw that was a dead end. And then talk about, I think I read on your bio that you had these like 3 incredible writers who taught there. Ring Lardner Jr. is that?
That was that where you had that?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, talk about that. I mean, that's got to be really instructive.
The I was working on a screenplay based on my travels, and um, I heard that there was going to be a special master's class that was going to be taught not by one but by three legendary screenwriters, all Oscar winners, who had been blacklisted during the McCarthy era. They were part of the Hollywood, not the Hollywood 10, but the more expanded, the Hollywood 17, something like that. And it was Ring Lardner Jr., who won the Oscar for MASH, Waldo Salt, who won Oscars for Midnight Cowboy and Coming Home, and Ian McClellan Hunter, who won the Oscar for Roman Holiday. And so I submitted my, half a script, and they accepted me into that class. It was just a small number of students, I think like 7 or 8. And we would sit on Tuesday nights around this conference table, and these three masters all sat at the head of the table, and the three taught the class. It was just amazing to hear these stories. And when Waldo read my pages, after the very first class, we all talked about our scripts, and so they can match the writers with the material because they had all read it. And Waldo asked me to stay behind, and he said, "So what's your story?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I read so much student stuff, and it's like everybody wants to write the next Star Wars. It's computers and robots, and he said, your characters are real, and I'm feeling like there's a lived life here. And where did you get this stuff?" And so I told him what I basically just told you. He said, "Oh, so you jumped trains, you rode rail." He goes, "Do you know that I Load was Woody Guthrie?" So I said, "Oh, yeah, this guy's my hero." And so he took a real interest in that script, and he said, "It reminds me in many ways of Midnight Cowboy, my screenplay. It's a road story." And nobody does road movies anymore. He said the idea of a young white kid, because that's what it was. It would end up being a movie called Crossroads, about a young white kid obsessed with the blues, who finds a long lost living blues legend connected to Robert Johnson, and helps him get out of a prison, and escorts him back down south to finish some unfinished business. And so Waldo, he kind of was my main guy developing that script in that class. All the students worked on each other, not going to work on each other's, but we were critiquing each other's work. And I got mine finished. I was tending bar at the NYU Rathskeller, the student pub, and I actually somehow talked my way into the job as pub manager, and I kind of made the most of the truth. I used to book bands, and so.
Oh, that's
But within weeks, they fired the doormen, the bartenders. I did such a bad job that they fired everybody but me. Like, you're the manager, but you're also the doorman, the bartender, though. And outside of the bar, there was a bulletin board, and I would check it every night to see if there were any student directors looking for student screenplays. Because one thing I felt at this film school was there was a real disconnect between the writing department and the directing department. It's like you've got writers who can't get their scripts made, and you've got directors who don't have anything to direct. And so I would look for that, and one day I saw this bulletin that said, "Focus, Films of College and University Students," a national competition, filmmaking competition sponsored by Nissan. And first place in each category was a brand new Nissan. And so I went down the line. There was sound achievement, directing, acting. It was, for some reason, way down at the bottom, screenwriting. I was like, oh, okay, I'm about 20 pages shy from finishing Crossroads. the deadline's in about 3 days. So I stayed up around the clock writing at the bar. I got it in, got to the post office and got it mailed right in time. Just got the stamp and got it in under the radar. And then found out I was one of the semifinalists, then one of the 4 finalists. And so they flew me to LA. I'd never been before. And I was taken around with all the other finalists in the different categories. They were from all the different film schools, USC, UCLA. And we were wined and dined by the studios, agents, and all of that. And then on the night at the awards, Rob Reiner was the MC, and I won first place screenwriting. So I won a brand new Nissan.
Yeah. It depends on that story. So then, what did your dad think of that?
Well, my dad, the auto salvage yard, he used to, he'd always fix up cars for me. I got a nice ALC Hornet for you. And then the first time I did something bad, in his eyes, he would tow the car back up to the junkyard, and he'd feed it through the crusher. And I was his form of behavior modification. And in fact, there was a stack of block crushed parts. And sometimes she said, just go look at those cars and think about straighten yourself out. So now I got a new Nissan, and I won it through my writing. So then the William Morris agency signed me, and Columbia Pictures bought my screenplay, and I didn't have to 10 bar anymore. And the movie, pretty much every major director out there wanted to do it. It became kind of the talk of the town, and all these actors wanted to do it, from Tom Cruise to Sean Penn, and
And you're still in college.
I'm still in college.
This is a disgusting story.
The thing is, I always, when I at the time, I had people say to me, "Oh boy, the talk about it overnight," and I'm like, no, no idea. And but so the producer would run the director's names by me, and one was Walter Hill. And being a Western aficionado, I love the Long Riders. Walter came up under Sam Peckinpah.
Sure.
And so I think, well, it's a strange choice, but I love it, And so Walter was hired to direct. Ralph Macchio was coming right off The Karate Kid. And so the next thing I knew, my movie was a big Columbia Pictures production shooting down the Mississippi Delta, where just a few years before I was working the car wash in Popo. And so,
What year are we at now?
1985.
85. Okay. All right.
And so I went to the chairman of my department, and I said, I'm leaving school. So
I got a movie deal. Yeah.
they want me to be on set. I'm going to go down on set. And she said, you're not leaving school. And I went, what? She said, you go to the movie set, but we're going to call that internship with Columbia Pictures. And then we're going to do an independent study with Walter Hill. And we're going to do everything we can to get through the credits so we can say you graduated from LA.
Yeah, she deserves a Nobel Peace Prize right here. That's a wonderful story. That's fantastic. So now you're getting ready. You're going to do another movie. How did you land on the subject of Billy the Kid? Where did that come from?
I had my agents were really excited. I was. They used to call it the flavor of the week or whatever. It's like who's the hot young screenwriter in town. So everybody wanted to meet with me and have these general meetings. And in these meetings, they would offer me projects. It's like, we've got this project about the professional basketball team gets abducted by aliens. You saved into a planet. And I'm like, I don't do that. So I go back and tell my agents, and they're like, don't be crazy. This is like, do you know what they're offering? I'm like, it doesn't matter what they're offering. I don't know how to if I don't feel it, I just don't know how to do it. And they're like, you'll find a way. You'll find a way. Nobody turns down this stuff. So this kept going on, and my agents were getting frustrated. And so they sat me down and they said, so what is it? What do you want to do? I said, I want to write another script on spec. On spec, speculatively, or you write on your own and then take it out to sell it rather than doing a development deal and getting commissioned. And so I said, I have a spec idea I want to do. And he said, what is it? I said, it's a Western. And they just went white. They looked at each other and they said, don't ever say that in the room.
Don't ever say that.
Don't never say that in the room. And I said, why? They said, it's a big joke. It's like an inside joke in town. And he's doing a Western. It's just the Western's been dead for over 20 years.
Wow.
No Western has made money since Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
69.
Yeah. So don't talk about a Western. Don't do a Western.
And where did you find Billy? I mean, was he in that stash that came out of
He
the
was.
of a car?
He was. My younger brother was obsessed with Wild Bill Hickok, and I was obsessed with William Bonney.
Oh,
And it was that photo of Billy the Kid that when I saw it, it just did not line up with the mythology, with the actors who had portrayed him, with this whole just kind of cardboard, moopy cowboy. I was like, there's something to this guy. I want to know what it is. And so that's when I started digging in. It was Walter Noble Burns, this saga of Billy the Kid.
Yep.
I first read, and then that led me to other books on it. But I knew that someday I would do Billy the Kid. And it was one of those passion things, just like I wanted to do a Robert Johnson, legendary young man's hero's journey. I wanted to do the Billy the Kid story, and I wanted to show that he wasn't a lone traveler who whistled sad ballads and was left-handed. Yeah, and that it wasn't cattle baron versus big guy, that there was an economic war, a merchant war, that it was complicated with the Irish and English, that he rode with a group called the Regulators, who wasn't by himself. And the fact that he was so young and the West was so young, like all of those elements, I just felt like, and I knew right then I want to call it Young Does. And I also, having come off the road and having had experience with country rock bands and that brotherhood, there was something about that rebellious, the anti-hero, that whole camaraderie. That's why John Bon Jovi wanted to be a part of everything, and why you wrote Blaze of Glory, and why I listened to Wanted Dead or Alive when I was writing, because there is that analogy of the rockers on the road and the outlaws, the brotherhood. So I pitched all that to my agents, and they were like, just don't do it. And I said, well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to write it on spec, and I'm going to, as proof of concept, you'll read it, and then you can decide, do we go out with it? And I said, and there's something else. They said, what? I said, I'm leaving LA. And they said, so you're writing a Western, you're leaving LA. Dude, God, get a synopsis. That's got the world handed to you. Every young writer and just dreams of this.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't do it. I want to get out of here. And I found a cabin in the mountains. And I want to go there, hole up, write on spec.
Where was the cabin?
The cabin was in northern Vermont.
Oh, and she went home?
Yeah. I got up there, and my dad had always had a little fish camp in Vermont, and so I fell in love with that wilderness up there, that world. I just felt it would be a good place to hole up and be a real writer, right? And they were like, yeah, well, poets do that, and novelists do that, screenwriters don't do that. You need to go to lunches. You need to go in town.
You've been in L.A.?
Yeah, But I told them I'm leaving, and this is what I'm going to do. And they said, one of the agents had said to me, "Oh, it's really tough we can't stop you, but we have to tell you to us, this is career suicide. And you're only 25 years old, or 26 years old." And I left, and they were still calling me saying, "You're being offered this, you're being offered that." I said, "I guess just give me a little bit of time."
And then how are you living if you didn't have a job?
Well, I had, Crossroads.
Oh, Crossroads. So that so so you had that.
Crossroads.
I got it. Okay. All right.
So
Cushion there.
there's the cushion, and so I to start Young Guns, the first thing I did was book a flight to Lincoln, New Mexico.
Yeah, there's not an airport there, sir.
Not true, you know.
Yes, sir. Drive, so I just but to your size. Went into Santa Fe for Charlotte's Cruise.
Went into Santa Fe as a rented car and did the long drive, went to Ruidoso.
It's a long drive. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of thinking time, a lot of staying in just little dives and reading like Walter Noble Burns and my stuff.
Yeah.
And then went to Lincoln, stayed there, and I can't remember the name of the
Casa de Road. Casa de Road or the Wortley.
Yeah,
Those are the two places.
yes, the Wortley. And the first person I met was the postmistress. She was a co.
Yeah. Well, there's a co here tonight. The co's are here. Yeah.
Okay. So I've got so I didn't realize this then, but so she was great, and then I just hung around the town and soaked up stuff and started like formulating the idea, walking the streets, going to Blazers Mill, doing the rides, just soaking in emotion. But I would later find out, years later, that my mother is directly related to the Coes of Essex. She's from Scotland, and my cousin Gordon Coe, who's still in Essex, I communicate with, and we've tracked it down. So I'm a descendant of Frank and George. Frank with the top value.
Yeah. That was same as Frank, a busy figure, which he bought. George or Frank. It was the Geordie Crow lost this trigger finger when he tried to arrest Buckshot Roberts at Blazers Mill, and he had his Winchester there, and they said, "Give up your arms." He said, "Not much, Marianne," and fired his Winchester, and everybody standing 2 feet from me, and a bullet went right down the outside of the barrel of that gun, took off his trigger finger. Okay, but I digress.
I love it. Yeah. So it's great to have relatives in the house and regulators. So I went back, and in addition to Walter Noble Burns, who it's interesting because after Young Guns, years later, a friend of mine had said, you're kind of like the Walter Noble Burns of a new generation. And I remember feeling like, what was that? Because he was known as a romanticist. But the fact that when his book came out, it breathed new life into the kid. And I felt that Young Guns, in many ways, did the same. And now has galvanized a new generation of historians who started because they saw Young Guns and loved it. But I went back, and there were other influences coming in. One was my wife, who I went off to NYU with her. She had basically the same story. We were two dreamers, kind of held hands and jumped off a bridge. We got married during the production of Crossroads. And another reason why I left LA is she was an actress, and she left the New York stage to come with me to LA, and she just did not like it. So she was happy doing community theater in Vermont, and she did a series of back-to-back Sam Shepard plays. So I was living with Sam Shepard monologues in my house, and so that there was something about Sam's. I couldn't hurt. Yeah, some of his rhythms, his tempos, that kind of bled into Young Guns when I was doing it. I became fascinated by the poetry of Michael Ajade, his poems, the collected works of Billy the Kid, including an imagined interview which is sort of based on the train interview.
Yeah.
And but so there was kind of some of his thoughts on Billy, Sam Shepard's dealing with themes of masculinity and identity, my disenfranchised youth ideas about rebellious rock and rollers living on the outside, being ripped off by the man.
Yeah.
All of that, it created this gumbo that became the script for Young Guns. Long story short, I finished it and I sent it to my agents, and it was a real interesting reaction because they were like, "We already told you the Western's dead, and we don't really want to go out and say this is what John's doing. He's doing a Western, but we need to think about this because you hit on something that we didn't expect." And so they were thinking about it for too long. And you're asking where the money came from. I took a script doctoring job. This is back at a time where certain screenwriters would be hired to doctor. And you could paid a ton of money to come in and fix a script. And so I was hired to come in and fix an unfixable script, which I won't even talk about. But
Come on. Give us a hint. I mean,
Jim Belushi was in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and but it was called The Principal, and it was about a principal in the inner city, dealing with an out of control school. But it really was a troubled screenplay, and I did my best. But I got to know the director, Chris Kane, and he was from South Dakota. He was a cowboy. We really hit it off. I really liked him, and I told him about my script. He goes, "Let me read that." So I handed him the script. So I'm waiting for my agents. I don't hear from them. I don't hear from Chris. And I'm like, maybe it doesn't work, but I really believe in this. So I called Chris. He said, "So tell me what are you thinking?" And he says, "Oh, I took it to Joe Roth at Morgan Creek. We're making this." So what, you didn't tell me? Oh, no, okay. And
You think you could have?
he said, and you mentioned to me that you think Sean Penn should play Billy the Kid. I took it to Sean Penn. I said, "Isn't he in prison?" He said, "Yeah, I took it to jail." I gave it to Sean in jail, and Sean wants to do it when he gets out of jail. So then I call my agents, and they're like, "Well, we'll call Joe Roth," and they called. And Morgan Creek at that time had a little trailer on the Fox lot, nothing on the walls, and they saw the movie right away. Yeah. And so I had a meeting with Joe Roth in that trailer, and I put the first thing up on their walls, which was a map of New Mexico. I pinned it up so we could talk about it. And meanwhile, there was a revolving door with every young actor in Hollywood coming in wanting to be in this thing. And they're just like, "Man, the Western's gonna get made. It's my dream. I want to do it. And they all wanted to play Billy the Kid. Sean's legal troubles made it impossible. But Emilio came on board, Kiefer Sutherland, Charlie Sheen, Jason Patrick at a certain point, he fell out, but Luke Diamond Phillips had just come off La Bamba. And so suddenly my agents then were like, "Okay, you know what? You got something here, and you were right." So then it landed on the cover of Premiere Magazine at the time, saying, Young Guns is going to try to bring back the Western. And so then now it was getting made, but everybody was saying, "It's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to work." Went off to New Mexico and had the greatest set experience in the world, just living on horseback with these guys. I wasn't much older than them. And the other thing is, I always say it was great working with the young guns, but getting to work with the old guns like Jack Palance, that was, and Brian Keefe, Buckshot Robbers, It was a total dream come true. Shooting in Cerrillos, New Mexico.
Yep.
Building our replica of Lincoln, Scottsdale, all these places, and movie got made.
Back up just a little bit. Tell them about the road trip you made with Emilio from Santa Fe.
So I got a call from the director, and he said Emilio really wants to play Billy the Kid, and I said, I think maybe Kiefer would be more right for it. And he's like, yeah, well, let me go back and talk to the guys. And then he said, Emilio wants to talk to you. So I got on the boat with Emilio. He was just like so passionate. He's like, I was born to play this role. Gotta do it, gotta do it. So he and I met in Santa Fe, and we did a road trip, just the two of us, all the way down to Lincoln. And on the way, he had my script in his hand, and he just picked my brain. And he would like read his scene. He's like, what was he thinking here? What's the? And so I would tell him the story, and then we'd go to Blazer's Mill. We'd follow the Billy the Kid trail. And he was like such a serious student, but I was still looking at him thinking, I don't know if he's right. I don't know if he's right. He's asking the right questions. Then we got to Lincoln, and he said, can you just drop me off, just leave me here? And I said, okay. And he said, just like, I need to just go feel it. So I left him there. I went off, I can't remember what I did, but I came back like toward the end of the day, and he got in the car, and we were going to go, I think we were going to stay at the Escalero, the Mountain Con or something like that. And so we're driving over there, and he starts reading from the script. And now he reads some scene, certain scene, and he breaks into this laugh, this gaggle. And I look at him in his eye, those blue eyes are shining. I got chills. And I always say that I left Santa Fe with Emilio Estevez, and I drove back with Billy the Kid. Nice. And he just really, he transformed. And then our property master was great with firearms. He had a bunch of period accurate firearms, but Emilio wanted a Colt Lightning. He wanted the guns the kids could use, and he said, "Can you help me out?" And I said, "Yeah, let's go gun shopping." So we drove around, went to different dealers, collectors, and he found a beautiful 1881 Colt Thunderer, 41 caliber, all matching serial numbers, mint condition, and that was his gun. So, and we ran a cowboy camp for the guys with our professional horsemen. All the guys took to it really well, except Charlie Sheen. I always said we wanted to rivet his jeans to the saddle. He bounced them up. They study knife throwing, gunplay, tack. They could strip down their saddles. They had to groom their horses. They had to really live it.
One of the things that I just recently rewatched it, and you all should see it. It's brilliant in the sense that it departs from Walter Noble Burns, but it captures the spirit. But it's so different. But one of the aspects that I thought was so profound is that the conversations between the regulators themselves was very boldly racist. I mean, I first kind of blanched it, and I never seen that in a Western, but it ultimately just felt so honest. It's like, wow, look, he's telling the truth about the way it really was. How did you get that in the movie? You must have gotten some flack back saying you can't put that in this movie.
Well, I mean, first of all, we know that racism was pervasive.
Was strategy not true?
Right, and because I was creating this brotherhood. Yeah. And one of the things I wanted to get across was that First of all, the characters at a certain point start talking to you, and characters like Jerry Steve are they're going to speak honestly, and that attitude's going to come through.
Right.
And it's going to create conflict within the group.
Yeah.
And these guys might give Chavez a hard time and be openly racist, but if anybody on the outside messes with Chavez, they're dead.
Yeah.
And so that was in the script, and the way that it got through without scrutiny or being called out by a studio was that because a Western had now been made in all this time, it was just like, no, it was just it was kind of like and the way it came in under the radar at Morgan Creek, and because we attracted a cast that anyone would kill for, Fox just gave us, it was just like carte blanche. I never got any notes on the script. Really? Yeah. Oh, that's stunning. It's the only time I've never got it. Only time. But no studio notes. No, it's just like we're shooting. We'll spread to the radar, man. Yeah. And so that was it.
Absolutely incredible. That it gives it even more luster than wow, that's just truly incredible. And then what happened when it came out? Must have your agents must have just thrown back on their mind.
It came out. It opened #1 at the box office, and why? And I still have the front page of Variety and the Hollywood Reporter, and what does it say? Guns hits target at box office, something like that. And suddenly, all of a sudden, Western were being announced, and so the Western had been dead for all that time. No Western had made money, and now the America's #1 movie was a Western, Young Guns. So it kind of opened up a floodgate, and people who had certain projects, they were getting made. My agent at William Morris also represented a young writer named Kevin Jar.
Oh, really?
And Kevin had come to me as he heard when it was getting made. And so I ran into him at a party, and I still remember the night because I was in a private conversation with the late Brandon Lee, standing off near the swimming pool. He was away from the crowd, and I went to be away from the crowd. I'm like, who's this other guy who doesn't want to be part of this scene? And it was Brandon Lee. So we started talking. And then Kevin Jar came out and joined the conversation. And Kevin said, so how are you getting a Western made? I said, it's getting made. He goes, can I audition for Pat Garrett? I said, you're tall enough, dude. And but after Guns opened up, my agent called me and said, Kevin loves you. He's so thankful because he's got now, he's off writing a spec about the OK Corral.
Yeah, Kevin Jar wrote it's a brilliant script. They Fade to Film Tristo. If they would have filmed it, his script. They trashed it about halfway in. Fire damn.
I remember that day because I was talking to my agent, and I was like, how you do? I'm not doing well at all. I got to get on a plane to New Mexico. They just fired Kevin. Yeah. And he never really bounced back from that. I know. He became a recluse. But a gifted writer who just loved, in the way that I do, just loved the Old West. But, Young Guns, one of the questions I get when we're here at the History of the West Museum, and, I've been asked in recent times, like, okay, you wrote The Highwaymen, and that set the history straight and straightened out the Arthur Penn version. We talk about that later, but so that was like historically, the Texas Rangers loved it so much and said, we finally brought back dignity and truth to Captain Frank Hamer. So people have said, why didn't you go that route with Young Guns? Why wasn't it more chapter and verse historically? And I always say that I wrote it early in my career, And it was at a time when, I mean, now audiences have become so discerning with history. And people didn't hit pause and Google back then. Wait a minute. Charlie wasn't, and because the Western was up against it,
Yeah.
and historical dramas were expected to use artistic license, right, and to find the drama. And so, and I wanted to do something to really shake things up. Yeah. And I wanted to write this kind of rock and roll Western that would still at the same time, as Dr. Paul Hutton had said when he came out, which really meant a lot to me, when he had come out and said, it's actually the most accurate Billy the Kid movie up to now. Yeah, yes, boy. I wanted to, to braid in, history throughout, but also to be imaginative. And so, and I've been asked if you could go back now, do it. Would you do it differently? Do it more chapter and verses. I don't think it would have opened up more at the box office. I don't think it wouldn't have become Young Guns, and that's its own story world. So,
Well, absolutely. And I think, well, first of all, let's give you a little bit of credit here. The Frank Hammer story, The Highwaymen, did rectify a wrong, which is that you all saw Bonnie and Clyde, Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway. You know that the Frank Hammer character is absolutely a fool and a bumbling one at that. And so for that alone, we thank you for placing that. And isn't it true that Mrs. Frank Hamer sued Warren Beatty and the movie makers and won a defamation of character against them because it was so awful?
yeah, Mrs. Hamer and her son Frank Jr., who, I mean, Frank was in high school, Frank Jr. at the time, and what his father had been pursuing Bonnie and Clyde. And when the film came out, it was just, they were humiliated and just enraged.
Yeah, it was awful.
Because Faye Dunaway spits on Hamer, they tie him up, put him in a boat, shovel a movie. No one ever got the drop on Frank Hamer. And I knew that. And that was another one of the books that I had from the trunk years back, was Bonnie. It was the forbidden book. It was a Bonnie and Clyde death card. Me and my brother weren't supposed to look at those.
And do you know what? This is full circle. Do you know what was in the Bonnie and Clyde death car in the trunk? The Saga of Billy the Kid by Walter Noble Burns.
Yeah, I do. If I saw that in the movie, I wouldn't believe it. I mean, it's like that. Isn't that incredible? Isn't that incredible?
It really is.
In the car
Yeah.
was the Saga of Billy the Kid.
Right.
And now you're doing the movie.
Yeah. Oh no, I know.
It's
spooky.
all circles within circles, circle.
Yeah. But so Gladys Hamer and Frank Jr. Sued Arthur Penn and Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
And they won a large enough settlement that is
$10,000.
Yeah.
They paid him $10,000.
Oh, I can remember.
Yeah.
But
I think they paid it to make it go away, but it still, it still was a justification. Like your film is a complete justification and reclaims that, which is fabulous. Which brings us to Brushy Bill. So now we're going on to Young Guns 2. And how did that percolate? So it was a huge hit. Now you can do it. Now you can have John Bon Jovi write the song. And him. That's really the first, I think, rock and roll Western. I think, you know what I mean? It really rocks. You know, I'm a rock and roller, so it didn't bother me at all. It didn't bother my disrespect. But I had a lot of friends who were like, ugh.
yes, and of course, yeah. My approach to Young Guns, to the first one, I knew I wanted to do Billy the Kid, but I didn't want to refry the same old beans. That at that point, and I think now there's been almost 70 movies about Billy the Kid.
Yeah. 71 if you count Old Henry.
My friend Pontius directed.
I know, and he's doing your new film.
So I didn't want to do Pat Garrett pursuing Billy the Kid. I want to do the younger days, more of an origin story, the Regulators. It hadn't been done, and that's what fascinated me the most. I didn't expect the movie to be as successful as it was, and to trigger a sequel. And so Joe Roth went from that little trailer in the Fox lot after Young Guns came out to be named president of 20th Century Fox. And so he now came, sat down with me and said, "We want you to write a sequel." And I said, "Oh," and they said, "And you just do what you want. As we don't know if it's story you do it." And I said, "Okay, this is great, this is great." And then, driving home, I went, "Oh shit, we're back to that same old story that I don't want to do." So as I sat and thought about it, we need a new angle. We need to hit it from somewhere new. And in the back of my mind was this obscure footnote about a guy named Ollie Roberts, aka Brushy Bill Roberts, who in early 1950s came out claiming to be Billy the Kid, that Garrett had let him go, that he survived. And the word had reached an attorney who went and investigated it, tried to meet with him, and he was elusive at first, and then he met with him, and Brushy Bill convinced him that he was Billy the Kid. And there were people around the area who said, "Yeah, I was there in Lincoln at the time, and he's the kid." And so he ultimately said, "So what do you want?" He said, I want to come clean. I want to tell my story. Governor Lew Wallace had promised me a pardon, and he never came through. And before I die, I want to be pardoned by the governor of New Mexico. So a meeting was set up with the governor, Governor of Avery.
Yes.
And the meeting was over. And so I felt, wow, what an interesting way into Young Guns 2 to tell it from that point of view, to deepen the relationship with Garrett, and to add a B story that is compelling. And the interesting thing is that just in the way that Young Guns had kind of reignited Billy the Kid fever, Brushy Bill had pretty much gone away. It had been a forgotten footnote. And there are a lot of people out there who still wish he was. But it created a real big excitement, to the point where, there's the Eco Texas, and there's the Hygo, there's the warring factions. I mean, people get really down and dirty. Was he or wasn't he? But that's how Brushy Bill came about.
Well, it's brilliant storytelling, and I have to fess up, as a historian, I flippin' hate it. Rushy Bill to be a Suppongus. But as a story, it's just wonderful. And because we all want to cheat death, it just has that brilliant. It's so brilliant. And here's what I really love about it. I wanted to save this to the end, but there's all this stuff going on online about Young Guns 3, and what would the story be? But what is so brilliant to me about your little twist is that Brushy Bill, he lived to 1950. And so that means on Young Guns 7, you could have him ignore. Because you got some other story.
This
I love that part. I hate the history. I love the storytelling.
There's a little bit of Forrest Gump where because in his book he goes through history. He's with Pancho Villa, and it's these stories are, so yeah. I mean, and Emilio, who in the same way I watched him transform into Billy the Kid, I watched him transform into Brushy Bill. We wanted to get an older actor, senior actor, to play Brushy Bill, and Emilio insisted on doing this little pig man, and going into prosthetic makeup, and it was voted down. And so when the 20th Century Fox brass came to town, I think we were in Tucson at the time.
Yeah.
And we weren't decided yet on who was going to do Brushy Bill. The executives from Fox, Joe Roth, they all went to something on 4th Street in Tucson, some crafts fair or something.
You'll have a new crafts fair. Yeah.
Okay, so
Who worked in many kinds.
so Emilio flew in from LA, a brilliant makeup artist, and he planned it for when everybody was in town and going to that thing. He got up at 3 in the morning and they did the prosthetic makeup. And he then had a car drop him off on 4th Street. And he walked along, he found the guy, he like walked up to Joe Roth and he's like, "Sir, I was looking at that before you." And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir." And he completely hoodwinked everybody. That was me.
And he got it.
Yeah.
Bless America. Once again, I wouldn't believe it if I saw the movie. It was fantastic. I got to call you out of carpet one more time. Yeah. The last time I promise. Well, maybe not promise. So you filmed in Cerrillos, at Scottsdale, New Mexico, the Billy the Kid story. And then for Young Guns 2, you came to Arizona. We got saguaros. See, I'm a geographic chauvinist now, man. I don't have saguaros in New Mexico. I'm that guy that stands up there. That saddle is so wrong. I'm that guy. Okay. So I can forgive you, but why did you come to Arizona when you had the thing going in New Mexico?
It was for Old Tucson.
Oh,
Old Tucson just did so much for us.
well, the all is forgiven.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was and I was excited about it because of the history of Old Tucson. I said, "Do you realize what?" Yeah, to drive to work every morning through Gates Pass, and to go and check in, and I'm spending my day working at Old Tucson, recreating Wild West. Yeah. So that was the main thing, and then we had some distant locations from there. Where James Coburn came out. We shot down close to the border. Yeah.
Wow. Should we talk about the Young Guns 3 about the status of it, or you want to spare that? It was So is it going to happen? I mean, online it looks like it's a deal, and you're going to have Pancho Villa as the defining factor, and then both the kids helping him. It's 1917. Is that all legit?
Yeah.
It's Ray's story.
Well, so we if we were going to do what like Top Gun does or Twisters did recently, and do that kind of nostalgia with a new twist and bring in Glenn Powell, you bring in a whole new group of young people, that would be a cash grab.
Yeah.
And so Emilio and I, our idea is not a cash grab. And we feel the way to really do Young Guns 3 is to lean into our story world. And regardless of what historians, think about Brushy Bill right now, that's part of our Young Gun story world. It allows us to keep it going, just as you said. And if you think about Quentin Tarantino doing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, right? The What Ifs, and Inglourious Bastards, and
Well, it's perfect.
what
What are the odds of this happening? What needs to happen? Is it going to go into film?
I have to say, Emilio was really driving this, and when he
Drew a script? Did you do a script?
yeah. Emilio really did the lion's share, and I've been working on it, and I'm working more and more on it. But Emilio, I mean, he pulled when he gets into this headset, he really becomes Billy the Kid. He becomes a real rascal.
Yeah.
And he had been talking to me about this, and then he disappeared, and I started getting weird selfies from Hico, Texas.
When all of your stories have these outrageous twists, it's almost like they're Hollywood scripts in themselves.
Elio, what are you doing in Hico, Texas with the hat, looking out, sending me these selfies? And he's like, I'm cooking up something, stand by. And so according to Emilio, everywhere he travels, people stop him, and it's always about Billy the Kid. And they're always saying, is there going to be a Young Guns 3? And he had been thinking about it. He loves the Brushy Bill angle. I think he actually bought the rights to the book, to the alias Billy the Kid.
Okay.
And I got a email said to me and said, Fusco, don't be pissed off at me. Please see attached script. And he went and spec'd out a script on his own. First, I was like, what are you doing?
Surviving, dude.
That's my thing. And I should say, as part of the whole Young Guns 3, there was this wonderful law, and I didn't know existed until a lawyer friend let me know. It's called a 35-year reversion of rights law, that after 35 years, the rights to a project revert back to the author. Yeah. So I now control the domestic rights to Young Guns to the franchise. So, and Emilio knew that, and I said, I'm the rights holder, and you wrote the script. I'm the writer, and you wrote the script. There's Millie, the kid laughed.
Yeah.
So you can shoot me later, just read it, see what you think. And I read it, I was like, damn, it's brilliant. Oh, I love it. He's a good writer. He got the voice, he got the unique, kind of twisted, dark humor in it. He got because that whole irreverent tone,
Right.
and leaning into Rushy Bill. What if he really was there with Pancho Villa? Yeah, and wrote a screenplay around that, which does recruit some new regulators, some new Young Guns, and it's. I just thought it was really well done. He's directing, and we have had a little bit of the interested parties are tending to like lean more for like cash grab, like how can we make this more, commercially. Yeah, and so we currently we're doing more of an outlaw approach, which is always worked for you all the way from the beginning. So let's do it in a way where we control it and do it the way we want to do it, and it's going to happen. It will happen. It's just
Heard it here first, not Smith.
thank you very much. That time, the calls, just like going back to the first script, getting those calls. I want to be in. I want to be in it. We get calls for everybody from Snoop.
I'll put it.
That's what.
They're just calling. They're Chris Pratt. Guys are like, I'm doing what I'm doing because of Young Guns. It would mean a lot to you to be in this thing. So
Wow.
so we've got that cooking. Bon Jovi, who should I tell you the Bon Jovi story?
No, you gotta hear this, John.
So Bon Jovi found, he read in an interview somewhere that when I was writing the first Young Guns, that my mood music was Wanted, Dead or Alive. And that's what I would listen to get fired up. I would write it. And mentioned it to Emilio. And Emilio said, oh, yeah, he'd have it piped over the speakers on the set and stuff like that. And Emilio told me, and I said, ask John if we could use Wanted, Dead or Alive and Young Guns too. And so he went back and asked him, and John said, it doesn't work because I'm singing about a steel horse, and it's clearly a tour bus. What if I wrote something new? I go,
That'd be awful.
yeah, and so I heard about this, and then it kind of went away. Things happened. We were shooting in Scottsdale, New Mexico, a night shoot, and we have this tungsten lamp, the big moon, hanging moon, so it looks like there's moonlight over the old West Village. And it was like 1:30 in the morning, and I'm on set walking, just trying to keep myself awake. And this van pulls up. I'm looking like, who's coming in? Because they're pulling into an area where it's VIP actor drop-ons. We don't have any actors traveling. And the side door opens. This figure gets out, his hair and New Mexico wind, battered acoustic guitar case, and it's John Bon Jovi. And he's kind of a little lost. And then I go up to him and say, John, John, oh, hey, man, where's Emilio's trailer? And so I bring Emilio's trailer, then that PA's radio me a little while later, could you go over to Emilio's? I go into there, and John's sitting there with his acoustic guitar, uncrumpled newspaper, notebook paper with lyrics. And he's like, "You want to hear it?" Well, yeah. He said, "Wake up in the morning."
The bad lead singer. Keep going.
Right into it, and shot down in the blaze of glory.
Yeah.
And he finished it. He's like, "What do you think?" That's our song. That's our song.
That was worth the trip down here today.
I really like it, guys. Yeah, so like, can I take those lyrics? Yeah, I still have them. So he played it for the next day. I had Joe Roth come in. I had the execs listen. They were over the moon. But that night, we were shooting the pit scene, the escape from the pit.
Yeah. Pit jail. Yeah.
And
Very accurate.
Emilio comes up to me and said, "Sean wants to be in the movie."
I was wondering. I bet there's a story to that.
He wants to get shot.
No.
I said, "Why do these guys all want to get shot?" You know, we had on the first one. I'm standing on set one day, and I turn around, and there's Tom Cruise. And Bailey comes over and goes, "Tom wants to get shot." So like we put him in. We put Tom Cruise into wardrobe, put mutton chops on him, and this was in Cerrillos. We're shooting the McSween fire at the McSween house, and there was Barry's Bar in Cerrillos, which was a rugged cowboy billiards bar. Tom had just come off of Color of Money. He's in full cowboy regalia, and he walks into Mary's Bar and he puts some money down on the thing, and they're like, "All right, stranger, come on." And he just kicks everybody's butt. But he's twirling the pool cue, you know, and but so we swept him, and he's up under. He did his own stunt, no surprise. Falls off a roof, gets shot. That was it. Randy Travis showed up to get shot. And so now flash forward to Young Guns 2. So Bon Jovi, they come to me, "How are we going to use him?" I said, "Well, he'll escape from the pit when everybody during the breakout, and he can get squibbed and shot there." And so we talked about the scene. He's like, "So how do the squibs work?" He said, "Well, we strap them onto you, and they're like electronically, they detonate." Yeah. And he said, "I like a whole bunch of them." I think we like squibbed him 32 times. And so he gets into the thing. So now he's in makeup. He's getting set to go. And I come into the trailer and they're like, "Fusco, we got an idea." What it was like, "You're going to be in the pit scene." And I'm like, "Really?" And they're like, yeah, come on. We're all in it. Just, you got to do it. You haven't done a cameo in this thing. My hair was down to here. And so I said, "All right." We was talking into it's a night shoot. We're all half out of our minds. And I said, "But I've got to create a character." So I went to the prosthetic makeup guy and I said, "I want a cattle brand on my cheek. And I want it to say JC." And they go, "It's like a biblical word." I said, No. It's John Chisholm. I got a cattle. Chisholm gave me a cattle brand because I was a thief. That's why I'm in the pit. So I'm credited if you ever look at Branded Man. I'm the branded man. And so I'm at the pit with Bon Jovi. So I spent all night sitting in the pit. So Bon Jovi, Lou Diamond Phillips, Kiefer Sutherland, and a bunch of extras from Surrey, from Elisteo. And I remember there's one guy in there, he had a flask. But it was getting cold. He just kept saying, "Hey boys, a drop of the creature." But so I did there with these rapscallions, and my role was I'm the first one out of the pit. If you watch the pit scene, and I strangle the deputy with my shackles. Yeah. And Bon Jovi comes up behind me, steals the deputy's pistols. After I strangle him, he starts shooting. He gets squipped 32 times back into the pit. He was very happy. He looked happy. He wrote us a song that went double platinum, was nominated for an Oscar, won a Golden Globe. So it was all, that was all, you know. And so, point being, he's down to write a song for Young Guns 3, so. He was shot, so he can't be in ABA. Snooping is shot.
Well, this is, I'm just looking at the time here where we should need to start wrapping up. I wanted to give time for you to ask questions, so we did have questions to be thinking about. We didn't get to half your damn filmography. I mean, you've done so many things. Quickly, Thunderheart, your favorite movie? Why?
Well, Thunderheart was, it was a real labor of passion, and again, it was one of those projects where I had a lot of agents. In fact, I kind of defied the studio because I had a development deal with TriStar. You know, and as I said, I kind of stay away from those. I like to write on some back and do my own stuff. But I heard they were developing a Native American project. It's a subject that's I'm real close to. So I went in and talked my way into that project and got it. But it was a real commercial idea. It was like a Native American cop goes to LA and kicks ass or something. And I took the opportunity to go off, and there was a writer's strike at the time. I've now endured 3 writer strikes. So this was another long one. And I took that time to write a Native American story that I've been wanting to do forever, which was based on Letter Peltier and Jumping Bull Compound and what was going on at Pine Ridge. And I traveled to Pine Ridge, and through Native contacts I had made on Young Guns. And I became very close with the community. I studied the language. I eventually was adopted by a medicine man named Frank Foolscrow, Chief Foolscrow, who was the elder who single-handedly brought an end to the Wounded Knee occupation in the 1970s. He was that revered. But he spoke little English. I went to see him to get permission to write this story. And he smoked the chanupo in me, the pipe, and gave me permission, but with the stipulation that I would learn Lakota language so he could talk directly with me. So I studied the language, and the experience transcended filmmaking. And I worked closely with the community. I would hold readings of the script in the old schoolhouse and let the elders tell the story. And it just informed the script. It would go on for 5 years on and off. I'd go back because I couldn't get it made. Because when I turned it into the studio, they were like, this is not what we hired you to do, but we find it really compelling. We're just scared because it's a little, it's about FBI occupation and uranium mining and all this stuff. They're like, can we just change that a little to a casino and cocaine? No. So it just became such a deep personal experience for me, and I felt like the Val Kilmer character in it, going through this experience. Michael Apted was a documentarian, and he was directing a documentary called Incident at Oklahoma at the time, which was the true story that inspired my stuff. I ended up working on that with a writing narration while we were shooting. So one fed into the other. We cast so many non-actors right off the res. And the film, which is on an artistic level, I felt was my most successful in how it was received. More importantly, we screened it on Capitol Hill, and it helped get legislation passed to protect sacred Native American sites. The people to this day still love it. If you go to Pine Ridge or you go to any reservation, you're going to see on the TV AVDs for Powwow Highway, Thunderheart, smoke signals. You won't see dances with wolves. But although that, that did some great stuff.
Sure.
For the people, but so it is just super meaningful for me in many, many ways.
According to Hollywood Reporter, you're starting on a series for AMC that is being pitched as Yellowstone meets NASCAR. Want to talk about that?
Yeah, I got an early morning tomorrow. I've got to be at the raceway, 7 o'clock in the morning to be done.
IR, the
Yep.
International.
Yep. It's the Cup Championship. I just sold a new series to AMC that I'm creating and show running called Thunder Road. And it's about a 4th-generation NASCAR family with the roots going back into whiskey running, moonshining in the hills. So it's kind of like a Succession or Yellowstone, but set in this world of NASCAR with a lot of skeletons in the closet and sibling rivalry. Who's going to end up taking over the family racing empire if it can even survive? So tomorrow AMC is here. I don't know. We had some AMC people are coming in tonight. NASCAR folks. NASCAR, this is unprecedented. They signed on as partners with me on the show, so they fully endorse it. And tomorrow's going to be on our ceremonial kickoff in the skybox, and we're going to, everybody, all the NASCAR and all the AMC execs are going to get a chance to stand on the pit box, put on a headset, and so they're getting out of LA. They're like, "This is our field trip. It's cool, bro." So they're all in Phoenix tonight, and the show. I'm hoping to open a writers' room in the new year, and get this thing shooting around Charlotte, North Carolina, at some point next year.
You also have a film called The Rescue. Is it filming or is it going to?
We're in pre-production in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Georgia. It's a spec script I wrote during this last writer's strike, and it's a modern day Western starring Brandon Sklenar, who plays Spencer Dutton in 1923. I see the girls looking at each other, and but yeah, my wife wants to be the first one on the set. So Brandon, he's a great actor. He's starring. It's being directed by Patsy Poncerola, who directed Old Henry.
That's right. Great.
Another Billy the Kid lived down there. Patsy told me what he said. I didn't know what to think when we first met, but Young Guns 2, this idea that Billy the Kid lived down gave me the idea for Old Henry.
Is that right?
So you did a damn good job. I looked and he's like, "What's Emilio think?" So I'm super excited about Patsy. He calls me every day from Georgia. We're shooting in locations where they shot Deliverance. So it's going to have a great look. And it's basically the story of what happens when the 12-year-old daughter of a female country music star goes missing. And her estranged father, who's a washed-up rodeo champ, takes his horse and the rescue dog that he gave to his daughter when she was 8, who was with her when she's abducted, and goes looking for her in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. So it's kind of a last American cowboy. Or somebody called it a flyover state John Wick. But he goes out and takes names and kicks butt, cowboy style.
Well, young man, you just might have a career at this. How many years you been in the business? What's it?
41.
That's in the five Stravage. Is there anyone else still working this?
No, it's
What do you attribute that to?
I think part of it was that move that the agents thought would be career suicide. I think having not been in all the lunches and every few years showing up in town, it's like, are you the new kid in town or will you, they can't quite figure it out.
Yeah.
Village Voice, he flogged Village Voice, remember that newspaper?
Oh, yeah, of course.
They did an article on me early in my career, and the headline was Inside Outsider. And it was written by Manola Gargis, who's now the New York Times chief critic. She wrote that article back then, but I remember really not being sure what to make of that then, and I look back at it like, she got it right. She got it right. I think it's I started working remotely before it recently became a thing. and I just think it's kept up. It's kept me from being in everybody's face, and it's kept me writing the stuff that means a lot to me and doing it on my own terms.
God bless you, sir. Yes. Okay, okay, man. I think that, what I do at one thing, what could things, he is playing tonight at Camtrack Art Compound. So if you want to see him play, I've got a couple tickets on me. He has a couple. So talk to me afterwards. Also, any last questions?
John, show.
Yeah.
Out of all humility,
Yes, sir.
Texas Rangers honorary badge.
Yes.
Just mention something.
Oh,
That's phenomenal.
yeah.
Your highway. Yeah.
We and the night of we premiered The Highwaymen in Austin at the Paramount Theater, which, strangely enough, is where Arthur Penn's Bonnie and Clyde premiered, all those years ago, and the 25 Texas Rangers showed up. It was this sea of hats like yours, in the back, and they stood up at the end, and the Hamer family was there, and the Galt family. Afterwards, the Rangers wanted to see me, and they took me into a private location, and they held a ceremony, and they presented me with a badge, a Texas Rangers badge from Company D, and an official identification.
Wow.
And so then they called in Kevin and Woody. They did the same for Kevin and Woody. Woody came in from the back room where he was with Willie Nelson and Matthew McConaughey. And they pinned the badge on him, and he said, "I think my chances of getting incarcerated in this town are really go way down." But yeah, I have that badge. My wife thinks I get carried away with that badge because I'm really proud of it, you know. I can go just take out your credit card at the grocery store. Thanks for
App off the biscuit.
Yeah, it's so I'm a member of the former Texas Rangers Association.
Cool.
And it's really cool. I stay in touch with those guys.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes.
Do you have an estimate or a guesstimate when Young Guns 3 will be in the movie years?
Yeah, I mean, Emilio is really driven to be shooting before summer of 2026. You know, in New Mexico. I guess he showed up at some a film conference. With the governor. That was another thing where it surprised me with the selfie. Yeah, it was with the governor. He's like, maybe she'll pardon me.
Oh, this has been we could talk all night, but they gotta wrap it up there. I'm getting the kill sign here. Yes, one last question.
Thunder Road, is that what Rowan McKenzie was painting the concept art for?
Oh, yes. Oh, you know Rowan?
I wish I knew Rowan. Rowan is how I found you and started following
Oh.
you on Instagram. But
Hello.
I
Rowan is a brilliant
yeah.
24-year-old Scottish concept artist who has been doing concept art for Ridley Scott since she was 21. And she was, just a few years ago, struck by a drunken driver while she was walking. And she's confined to a wheelchair. And but she does brilliant art. She and I have talked about different projects, and she's just great at, when she hears I'm doing something, she'll just start doing concept art and talk about proof of concept. I'm like, well, you know, if this got to go through AMC, it's got to get, she just keeps hitting me with it, but, you know, to the point where you look at it and say, oh, this is just so great. But yeah, she's been doing that.
Yeah. Following her and her following you has just been so interesting, and the crossovers that go into other areas of. I just got really the Scott art.
Oh, yeah.
So
All right, everybody. You want to go ahead?
I just want to thank everyone for coming out, and we get just a
Not in the L. And in there, it's very
3 months back again, with my brother Robert, my kid brother, he passed away too young. He was the one I'm obsessed with, Wild Bill. We would like race each other to the mailbox for our True West. And here's the man who keeps it going, who's reignited it, who, you know, every issue is just, I don't know how he does it, but in his work, his artwork, and talk about keeping the Billy the Kid alive. This whole exhibit, the resurrection of Billy the Kid, is just phenomenal, and it's just a real pleasure to be in a conversation with you and see you, Bob.
No, it was mine, man. Thank you.